So today, we're diving into a really powerful idea from Zen philosophy, pulling from some talks by Osho. And it's a bit of a paradox, one that really makes you question everything you think you know about learning and intelligence.
I mean, think about it. We live in a world that's just screaming at us to know more, to gather more data, to become an expert in something. But what if all that knowing is actually the very thing that's holding us back from real understanding? That's the big question we're going to tackle, and it all comes from a classic Zen story. Now get this. This is the core paradox. A Zen master says this one line to his student and poof, the student becomes enlightened. It sounds totally backward, right? How can not knowing something bring you closer to it? To really get our heads around this, we first need to understand what Zen is all about. So what is Zen really? It's not about escaping the world, or floating on a cloud somewhere. It's actually the complete opposite. It's about finding something truly extraordinary right here, in the middle of our totally ordinary lives.
You see, the great miracle of Zen is this. It takes the everyday stuff, washing the dishes, walking down the street, and turns it into something sacred. It's not about changing what you're doing, but how you're doing it. It's about being totally present, spontaneous, and immediate.
And this is what makes Zen so unique. It isn't a philosophy that you just debate in your head, and it's not a religion you have to believe in. Zen says, hey, stop longing for some other world, some heaven somewhere else. This shore, right here, right now, is more than enough. The whole point is to transform this body, this life, into a paradise just by being completely rooted in the present moment. Okay, so this brings us to a really crucial distinction in Zen, and it's key to understanding that whole not knowing thing. It's the difference between knowledge and true knowing. And the text uses this beautiful metaphor to explain it, a mirror covered in dust. Let's break this down a bit. On one side, you have knowledge. This is the stuff you acquire from the outside, from books, school, the internet. It's always about the past, right? Something that's already happened. And funny enough, Zen says it can actually become a barrier. Knowing, on the other hand, is innate. It's already inside you. It only exists in the present moment, and it's a bridge that connects you directly to reality. So, think of it like this. Knowledge is all the dust. Over your whole life, you collect these layers of facts, opinions, and beliefs. It's not that the dust is bad, but if you're not careful, it can build up so thick that it completely covers the mirror. And then you can't see anything clearly anymore. So, knowing is the mirror that's underneath all that dust. It's your true nature. It's always there, perfectly clear, ready to reflect reality exactly as it is, without any distortion. You don't learn it, you just uncover it by wiping away all that dust. So the big question is, how on earth do you do that?
Well, this is where the Zen master comes into the picture. A master isn't like a regular teacher who just pours information into your head. Nope, their job is totally different. They're more like a catalyst.
You see, a real master knows they can't give you the truth because you've already got it. It's just sleeping, lying dormant inside you. So their entire job is to poke and prod and challenge you to create a situation where your own inner knowing finally wakes up. The source uses this incredible metaphor from the Bible. It says we're all a bit like Lazarus, living in the dark cave of our own minds, our own unawareness. The master just stands outside the cave and calls, "Lazarus, come out." They don't drag you out, they just create the call that inspires you to walk out on your own.
So you can kind of think of their job in three parts. First, they provoke that inner truth. Second, they act like a searchlight, illuminating paths inside yourself you didn't even know were there. And finally, when you have that aha moment of realization, they're there to confirm it, to say, yes, that's it, you've got it. Okay, so to bring all this together, let's look at this amazing Zen story about a student named Hogan. This really short conversation has everything we've been talking about packed inside it.
So the story kicks off with the master, Keishin, asking Hogan what seems like a simple question. But in Zen, a question like this is never simple. He's not just asking, where are you walking? He's really asking, what's your goal in life? What are you all about?
And wow, Hogan's answer is just incredible. See, a pilgrimage with a goal is really just ambition in disguise. But an aimless pilgrimage? That means you've dropped all your goals, all your desires. You've just surrendered to the flow of life, trusting that whatever happens is exactly what's supposed to happen. But the master, he's got to be sure, right? Is this a genuine state Hogan is in? Or is he just repeating some clever words he read in a book? So he pushes him a little, asking the same question again, but in a slightly different way.
And this is the absolute key. Hugin doesn't try to come up with some smart, philosophical answer. He doesn't even repeat his last line. He just answers from this place of pure, honest emptiness. I don't know. He has truly, completely let go of everything.
And there it is. The master confirms his state. So why is not knowing the most intimate? Well, think about it. Knowledge creates distance. It puts layers of ideas and concepts between you and what's right in front of you. But when you drop all of that, when you're in a state of pure not knowing, there's no distance left. You are one with reality. It's the ultimate intimacy.
And that one sentence of confirmation from the master was the final nudge Hogan needed. It was like the last piece of the puzzle just clicked into place. Hearing his own inner experience validated, his mind finally went quiet, and he woke up.
So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. All that knowledge we collect is about the past, but true knowing, that deep intuitive connection, that can only ever happen right here, in the now.
And that kind of leaves us with a question for ourselves, doesn't it? What opinions, what beliefs, what facts are acting like dust on our own mirrors? What could we try letting go of, even just for a moment, to see our world and maybe ourselves with totally fresh eyes?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're setting aside the usual conversations about how to live a better life in the way we normally think about it. More productive, more mindful, more successful. We are focusing on something a little more fundamental. How to live a truly awake one. The question that really jumped out from the powerful stack of sources we've analyzed is this. What if the key to profound understanding, to real liberation, isn't accumulation? It's not effort.
Right.
It's not that long, arduous road of self-cultivation we always hear about, but instead, a single, instantaneous realization.
That really is the core theme, isn't it? It runs through this whole collection of teachings we're looking at. We're diving into what feels like a really radical philosophy.
Yes.
I mean, it's ancient in some ways. You can see a lot of Zen influence, but it also feels strikingly contemporary. And it's all centered on this idea of immediate awareness.
So this isn't about collecting more spiritual wisdom or, adding another technique to your toolkit.
Not at all. It's almost the opposite. Our task today is to really examine the nature of time itself, to dissect the traps that are, inherent in traditional knowledge and our belief systems, and to walk through this truly revolutionary and sometimes surprisingly funny path of not knowing.
Our mission then is, it's ambitious. We want to unpack this idea that enlightenment isn't some gradual process you earn over decades.
Yeah, that it's not a prize at the end of a long race.
Exactly. That it's an instant return to an innate clarity, like a snapping back to reality.
Right.
We're going to explore the surprisingly direct ways this can be achieved, mainly by shedding the heavy burdens that our sources identify as our prisons.
The burden of the mind, the burden of memory.
The burden of the past, and the heavy, heavy burden of societal conditioning. So get ready to have your foundational assumptions about personal growth seriously challenged, because the answers we're finding today are, they're immediate.
To really get a handle on this immediate path, we have to start with our understanding of time. I know that sounds a bit academic, maybe a little abstract.
It does, a little bit.
But the way we mentally define the present moment is, honestly, the key that unlocks everything else we're going to talk about.
So we think of time as this straight line, right? Past, present, future. The present is just this tiny, fleeting dot on the line.
That's our typical view. Linear, continuous, but these sources, they just throw that out completely. They assert that the present is actually, it's not part of time at all.
Okay, that is a real paradox.
Yeah.
Let's try to dissect that, because it's a bit of a head-scratcher.
It is.
I mean, we can clearly measure the past.
Yeah.
I can say, that happened 10 years ago, or that event lasted for 3 weeks. The past has duration.
Sure. And the future, too?
And the future has duration.
Right.
We can calculate how many days until a deadline.
Yeah.
But if you try to apply that same measuring stick to the now, to the present moment, how long does it last?
You can't measure it.
You can't. The answer, according to these teachings, is that it is immeasurable. It is almost not. It's like it doesn't exist if you try to pin it down with time.
Exactly. It's the point where duration just collapses on itself. There's a beautiful description of it in one of the sources. It's called the penetration of eternity into time.
The penetration of eternity into time.
Wow, it's the non-temporal, the eternal, intercepting with our temporal flow. And because the present is this singular, immeasurable point, this sort of non-time within time, that explains why spiritual traditions that are focused on immediacy, especially Zen, they're neither interested in the past nor the future. Their total uncompromising focus is only on the present.
Because the present is the only point of contact with reality. The past is just a memory. It only exists in my head. The future is imagination. It also only exists in my head.
Exactly.
So if you're entirely focused on the contents of your mind, on memory and imagination, you're completely missing the only thing that's actually happening.
And the sources argue that this clinging to the mind, this obsession with the past, is precisely why people find their lives so, well, boring.
Right. Life isn't boring. Our thoughts about it are.
Life itself is in constant motion. It's surprising, it's unpredictable, it's entirely fresh every single second. But if you walk into this present moment carrying all the heavy baggage of your past experience, all your accumulated knowledge, all your memories,
It's just filtering it.
you're filtering reality through this heavy layer of expectation and prejudgment. You aren't seeing what's actually changing in front of you. You're just seeing your old, dusty mental interpretation of it.
So if I see a sunset today, I'm not really seeing this sunset. I'm just comparing it to the thousands of other sunsets I've already categorized and stored in my memory bank.
Right.
And I just mentally tag it as, oh, another sunset.
Precisely. The external reality is dynamic, but your internal response is static. It's repetitive. The sources are so clear on this. It is the mind that is boring, not life. We use memory and accumulated knowledge to build what they call a strong mind, like a China wall around ourselves.
A China wall. That's a powerful image.
And that mental structure, it disconnects us from life's vitality.
It's a prison wall. It might keep perceived danger out, but it definitely keeps reality out. Living behind this wall, we don't really see the stars or notice the birds or feel the sun with any kind of freshness. So our common conclusion that life is dull is just. It's profoundly wrong.
Yeah.
We're just operating inside a self-created psychological cell, too well informed by yesterday's memory to appreciate today's reality.
And the required shift, therefore, isn't about acquiring new information or learning a new technique. It's a radical shift in perspective, and the analogy that's used over and over to describe this shift is the state of recapturing innocence. We're encouraged to start looking like a child again.
Let's talk about that innocence, because it's not about being naive or ignorant in an intellectual sense.
No, not at all. It's about a total, non-judgmental presence.
Okay.
Think about a child at the seashore collecting seashells. The sources describe this child as just utterly thrilled, approaching every single shell as if they've found a mine of diamonds.
Because the child has no frame of reference. There's no prior experience stored away that says, oh, this is just a common shell. I found one just like it yesterday. There's only the discovery.
Only discovery. Or think about a child running after a butterfly, just completely absorbed in that one activity. Nothing else in the world matters in that moment. That total unburdened presence. That is innocence.
So innocence, in this sense, functions as a bridge that leads directly to reality because there's no mediation by the mind.
While knowledge, conversely, functions only as a wall. It isolates us. If you have too much knowledge, the sources argue, you lose your ability to wonder. You lose the capacity to be shocked or surprised by existence.
You lose the wow factor.
You lose the wow factor completely. We have to be willing to drop the sophistication, drop the heavy memory of all the previous sunsets or previous flowers we've seen, and genuinely encounter everything as if it were for the very first time. That is the necessary step. You have to empty your cup before anything new can come in.
That focus on immediate, innocent perception naturally leads to, well, a pretty radical skepticism toward accumulated learning. If memory and knowledge are a wall, then the systems we build using them, systems of thought, systems of philosophy, are just heavier, thicker walls. This is what the sources call secondhand knowledge.
And this point is driven home by a rather scathing anecdote about an old professor who was required to attend a class. This man, a respected figure, he confesses that he hadn't actually read anything new for 30 years.
30 years! He just uses old notes, repeating the same information over and over again.
Year after year.
He even admitted he was functioning as a gramophone record. This just perfectly illustrates the scholarly trap, doesn't it? Why are we listening to a gramophone record to secondhand knowledge when we could go directly to the source?
Through the books themselves, or even more importantly,
To the immediate lived experience.
for 3 decades, that professor taught the exact same material while the world outside was fundamentally changing. New discoveries were being made, new philosophies were born, millions of new realities were being experienced by people. But his reality was sealed off by those 30-year-old notes.
It's the ultimate danger of relying on words and memory. They become a substitute for the raw, chaotic, fresh experience of reality. So the scholar ends up teaching the death of knowledge, not its life.
And the critique of scholars in these sources is, it's truly merciless. They're described as crippled people, paralyzed, hung up in their heads.
Hung up in their heads.
They're magnificent system makers for sure. They can build these beautiful, intricate theories and intellectual patterns, but the final judgment on them is that they know nothing.
No words.
They are magnificent at creating systems of words. They use words and more words, which leads to this deep self-deception. And then they deceive others into thinking that they possess truth simply because they have a complex vocabulary. But as you said, the moment they're lost in words, they're lost in the mind, and therefore
They're lost to reality. We see this play out so vividly in that little story, the anecdote of the man ordering Kiddlies in a restaurant.
Oh, this story is fantastic because it just demonstrates the ultimate failure of language when it's divorced from reality.
He's so insistent.
The man insisted vehemently on the word kiddlies when what he meant was kidneys. He's arguing with the waiter, refusing to acknowledge the actual food being offered just because his internal linguistic map was fixated on that one sound.
At least.
He was completely deaf and blind to the external world, to the actual waiter, the actual food, because he was so hung up on his own internal word.
He couldn't reconcile his word with the physical reality right in front of him. It shows this profound psychological fixation, where the symbol has become more real than the thing it represents.
And if that kind of fixation can happen over something as simple as a dinner item, imagine the danger when we fixate on the most abstract concepts, theological and philosophical frameworks that offer no real sustenance at all.
Which brings us to that darkly humorous joke about the cannibal.
Yes.
The joke about the cannibal who comes rushing into the village all excited because the hunting party captured a Christian theologian, and the elder just looks at him unimpressed and says, "Good. I've always wanted to try a bologna sandwich."
It's brutal, but what is that joke really pointing to? It's the deep utility of getting lost in these high-flown abstract philosophies and theologies. These abstract words, whether you call the person a Christian theologian or a bologna sandwich, they're utterly insubstantial when you're faced with raw, lived reality.
So the teachings are suggesting that if you want truth, you have to beware of identifying yourself as a Christian or a Hindu or a Mohammedan or anything else, because these are all systems that function to make you deaf, blind, and insensitive to the immediate moment.
And the master's true function, then, is not to give you more philosophy, not to give you a better system. It's to liberate you from all imaginative philosophies entirely.
The goal is to bring you to a state of wordless silence.
Exactly. Philosophy is described in the sources as an exercise in futility. And why? Because it's a mind game. One answer just generates 10 more unanswerable questions.
Right, it's a rabbit hole.
It is. You start with a simple question about existence, and then the intellectual foliage gets thicker and thicker, and the philosopher gets lost in this excessive curiosity and system building, and ultimately loses all their clarity and intelligence. They become trapped in the word cage they built for themselves. The whole point is to step outside that cage and just witness what's there.
So if the intellectual path is just a futile exercise in making word cages, then to reach that wordless silence, something fundamental inside us has to collapse. We have to bypass the mind entirely. And this is why that profound metaphor of spiritual death and rebirth is so central to these teachings. Let's delve into the famous story of Lazarus.
The story of Lazarus, right, who dies and is called forth from the dark cave by Jesus, is used not as a historical event, but as an eternal truth. The sources explicitly caution us against getting tangled up in questions about whether Lazarus was historically dead or whether Jesus could actually perform miracles. They call that whole line of questioning absurd.
Because it misses the point entirely. If it's not a fact that happened in time, then it's a higher truth that happens in eternity. And the truth, as these sources interpret it, is, well, it's deeply confronting. The truth is that we are all Lazarus.
Precisely. We're all dead. We're living in our own dark, confined caves, stinking and deteriorating, existing in a state of profound slumber.
It's not a future event.
Death isn't some distant event that arrives when you're old. The sources claim that we have been dying every single day since the day we were born. It's a slow, long process of decay and loss of vitality, and we are absolutely unaware of the whole situation because we're so consumed by our intellectual life, our jobs, our external identity.
So we just proceed in this great slumber under the grand illusion that we know what life is, while we're actually just becoming colder and more disconnected with every passing day.
Yeah.
The master's role, then, is literally to stand outside that psychological cave we're in and call us forth. Not with a book, not with a theory, but with a direct challenge to awaken.
And that awakening, that resurrection, it requires a symbolic rite of passage. This is where the symbolism of John the Baptist's baptism comes in. It's not the physical water of the River Jordan that cleanses you. The water is symbolic of an inner cleansing.
We have to take an inner bath to wash away what the sources call the dust of centuries. And what is that dust?
It's the accumulation of all that secondhand knowledge we talked about, all the prejudices, all the fixed beliefs, and all the memories that keep us locked in the past.
So this process of inner cleaning is absolutely necessary because the disciple has to willingly pass through a death process.
They have to.
Dying to your past identity, dying to all your accumulated knowledge, and crucially, dying to all your most cherished beliefs. Only through that total voluntary death can you be reborn with clarity, and that clarity is enlightenment. You have to empty your identity to discover your true self.
And when that rebirth happens, it's not described as some quiet internal shift. It's described as a sudden, undeniable, explosive event.
I love this part. The sources quote the great Master Day saying that all the teachings of all the sages throughout history are nothing more than footnotes.
Just footnotes?
Or commentaries on your own spontaneous sudden cry of, this.
It is the ultimate moment of recognition, a moment of profound shock. And why shock? Because you realize that the thing you had been searching for outside, across lifetimes and across mountains, was already inside you, was already present.
So a great shout of joy arises in your being. Every fiber of your body, your mind, your soul just dances in ecstasy. You're seeing the world unmediated for the very first time.
You mentioned ecstasy. Why is it described almost as an orgasmic experience?
I think because it's a total merger. It's the end of separation.
The sources describe it as the entire existence coming together within you. Stars seem to come down from the rafters, feeling so close you can almost touch them. It's the end of that psychological distance between the self and the world.
And it's not something you have to do or manufacture. It's something that just happens so completely, so totally, that even if you tried to resist, you'd find it impossible. It's the spontaneous collapse of that China wall you spend a whole lifetime building.
Okay, so if the mind is a wall and the past is a prison, we really have to examine the primary architect of that prison, society itself. The sources launch a very powerful critique here, arguing that society inherently makes people neurotic, abnormal, and off-center.
The claim is so radical. It's that every child is born normal, they are innocent, whole, perfectly present, but then society immediately steps in to cure him, pushing him off his center.
And that cure takes the form of assigning these fixed identities: Hindu, Mohammedan, Christian, communist, Catholic, liberal, conservative. All of these fixed identities are considered a kind of neurosis.
So society creates all kinds of neuroses in all different sizes and shapes, and essentially invites the child to go shopping for whichever psychological illness suits their parents or their cultural environment.
It's a system designed, maybe unintentionally, to uproot you from your true immediate nature and force you into a structure of predefined beliefs. This is humorously but also powerfully affirmed by that anecdote about the famous psychiatrist.
That's right. When the psychiatrist was asked to define a normal person, he replied,
"When we find him, we cure him."
"It's dark, but it reflects the reality that society is constantly normalizing people by making them abnormal, by forcing them into conformity and a shared delusion. The person who is completely centered, who is non-judgmental, who is innocent, they just don't fit into the societal structures that rely on conflict and boundaries and fixed definitions."
Which explains exactly why awakened people figures like Buddha or Jesus or Lao Tzu are necessarily labeled antisocial.
It's not that they actively want to cause trouble.
No, not at all. It's simply that the moment they recognize and share the vastness and the clarity and the innocence of not knowing, they're sharing a state that is fundamentally contrary to society's very foundation, which is built on fixed knowledge and absolute certainty.
So if the master's function, as we established earlier, is to destroy both knowledge and ignorance and restore your childhood innocence, then the highest expression of that restoration is the profound ability to declare honestly and deeply, I don't know.
And this is just beautifully captured in that Zen anecdote of Kishin and Hogan. It's one of the most immediate paths to enlightenment described in these sources.
So Kishin asks Hogan, what is the matter of your pilgrimage? What have you been seeking? And Hogan replies with this utter sincerity,
I don't know.
And Kishin, instead of giving him a new instruction or some correction, he instantly confirms the insight. He says, not knowing is the most intimate. And that single moment leads immediately to Hogan's great enlightenment.
We need to spend some time unpacking why that phrase is so powerful. Why is not knowing the most intimate state?
It seems counterintuitive.
It does.
Yeah.
But think about it. The ignorant person, the one who is asleep, says, I know. They have a fixed answer, but no real experience behind it. The intelligent person who searched the libraries and the philosophies and found the limits of intellectual inquiry, they admit, I don't know. And that's a sign of intelligence, a sign of intellectual humility.
But the truly enlightened state is a transcendence of both of those. It's not even knowing that you don't know. It's a state where the question and the answer just vanish, and only silence is left.
Hogan, by sincerely replying, I don't know, transcended that I know barrier and immediately entered the realm of wordless silence. He crossed the border to realization without any lapse of time. That declaration of absolute emptiness, of not carrying the heavy luggage of knowledge, allowed the truth to just flood in instantly.
And that's why it's the most intimate. It's the point before the mind starts interfering.
Exactly. And what builds the thickest walls of knowing and keeps us from that intimacy? The sources are really clear. It's the prisons of identity, national, religious, political.
These structures are just completely imposed on us. Nobody's born British or German or Indian.
There are structures that are imposed on us later on after the birth. They are, by definition, artificial social mechanisms designed to enslave your psyche, to define you in opposition to others, and to maintain these power structures of division.
The sources introduce this stark concept of countries as big prisons. If you spent your entire life within one border, you might not feel the prison walls. But the moment you try to cross that border,
the reality of the structure hits you instantly.
You're immediately aware of the barriers and the bureaucracy, the passports, the papers, the customs officials asking who you are and why you're here.
These are just the physical manifestations of the psychological limits we accept every single day. The goal is simple, yet revolutionary. To drop these artificial structures and just become simply human. To declare one's universality and the belief that the whole earth belongs to us, not to these arbitrary political divisions.
And the subtle pressure to conform to these identities is constant. We have that wonderful, slightly dark anecdote about the German man in the Soviet zone.
With the parrot.
With the parrot, yes.
Yeah.
His parrot was missing, and when he reported it, he had to be so careful in explaining that if the parrot started spouting any political opinions, those opinions were strictly his own.
Sauce. It illustrates the oppressive, pervasive need for conformity. Even the bird, even the simplest aspects of personality, must be viewed through the lens of societal expectation and political surveillance.
So these national, political, and religious identities, they function as subtle chains. The path of immediacy requires that they can be dropped, allowing us to slip out of the psychological slavery they impose.
The person who is free is simply a human being living on the earth, unburdened by these defining labels.
Okay, so we've established that the past, society, and accumulated knowledge are all prisons. The biggest task, then, in achieving any kind of liberation is mastering the central mechanism that maintains them all, the mind.
And as we noted, the mind is a highly sophisticated machine. I mean, the human brain is an incredibly complicated biocomputer. It's capable of holding all the world's libraries.
It's a mechanism of unparalleled subtlety and power. But, like any powerful machine, it's only efficient if it's properly maintained and managed.
And that is the problem. This subtle mechanism is continuously, relentlessly, and unnecessarily used. We allow the mind to run perpetually, day and night, dreaming and waking.
Never gets a break.
Never. When the mind remains on for 70 or 80 years without a break, it just becomes utterly exhausted. The sources argue this is why people lose their intelligence and clarity as they age. They're simply too tired.
The machine is worn out. So the prescription isn't to destroy the mind, but to change its function entirely. It needs rest. It needs a holiday every single day to remain efficient and sharp.
And the crucial distinction has to be made. The mind as a master is dangerous and destructive. Why? Because the mind is just a mechanical mechanism that works based on repetition and memory. But the mind as a slave is tremendously significant and useful.
priorities are just completely upside down. We treat the machine as the boss.
We do. Consciousness must be the master, the one observing and directing the machine, rather than being run by the machine's program content. The moment the mind takes over, it just starts cycling through old programs of fear, desire, and comparison.
And this is where the concept of the ego comes in. The ego, along with your clothes, your shoes, your umbrella, and your language, it's a utility.
It is not a reality. It is a necessary tool for navigating the world, but it has no independent existence.
I really appreciate this simple analogy of the umbrella. It just makes the point so perfectly.
It does. You use the umbrella when it's raining because that's its purpose. It has utility. But you don't carry the umbrella unnecessarily when the sun is shining, and you certainly don't become so identified with it that you take it to bed with you, fearing it might rain in your dreams.
Right.
The ego is the same. It's necessary for communication. The master uses his mind and his language when he's speaking to the disciples, for example. But the moment he's alone, settled into himself, the utility is switched off. Language and ego just disappear.
The error we commit is a psychological one, not an intellectual one. We confuse the tool with the user.
And that core error is called identification. Identification means to make something an entity, to grant the psychological construct of self or id a solid reality. When you become the mind or the ego, you have become a thing you are not. This is described as metaphysical sleep, or very bluntly, insanity.
To think yourself something which you are not. To identify with a temporary utility.
Right, so if I identify with my professional title, or my bank account, or my nationality, I have essentially carried the umbrella to bed. I've confused an external, fluctuating utility with my stable, internal reality.
And the goal then is disidentification.
To be that which you are, which is pure consciousness, the witness. You remain centered in your reality of watching all the changes in the world, the utility of the mind, the flow of feelings, the labels of society, without becoming obsessed with them or critically identifying with them. If we can maintain that detachment and remain the master, the utilities become powerful tools without becoming our personal prison.
This mastery of the mind and the total focus on the immediate present, it brings us to the most radical claim of all, that the path to truth is instantaneous. The sources cite the ancients who explicitly stated that self-cultivation takes an unimaginable time, while enlightenment in an instant is attained.
We really have to challenge the listener's fundamental conditioning here. Most traditions, they teach that enlightenment is something you earn through long effort, through discipline, through purifying yourself over time.
The long, hard road.
The long, hard road. But these sources argue that this long, arduous path of self-cultivation is fundamentally wrong. It only appears to be a path, but it actually leads nowhere. You just go round and round in endless circles.
And it takes unimaginable time for a very logical reason, right? The goal of arrival implies you are not already home. If you believe you need to work for 30 years to achieve enlightenment, you're operating from the initial foundational mistake that you are currently unenlightened.
But the profound paradox is that you are already enlightened. You have simply forgotten it. It's like searching for your glasses when they're already on your nose. You don't need a 30-year path to find your glasses. You just need to be reminded. And that reminder happens in a single, sudden moment.
So any spiritual process that postpones that moment, like trying to meticulously get rid of all your past karmas or waiting for the next life, is just a way of appealing to our fundamental, comfortable state of sleep.
It's just a delay tactic for the mind.
But a listener might ask, doesn't the long path ensure discipline and purification? If I'm already enlightened, why should I bother with any internal work at all?
That's the perfect question, and the sources address it head-on. They argue that the path of cultivation is actually highly dangerous because it creates what they call pious egoism.
Pious egoism.
When a person tries to cultivate a virtue, they're not addressing the root problem. They are reinforcing the ego that is doing the cultivating.
The ego becomes proud of its newfound piety. Look at how virtuous I am.
Exactly. When a saint practices nonviolence, what is really happening? They are repressing the innate natural violence that exists within them. They are pushing that violence downwards into the unconscious, where it becomes far more insidious, poisonous, and difficult to eradicate later. It just creates hypocrisy. The saint appears nonviolent to the world, but internally they're a battlefield of suppressed rage.
The absurdity of this kind of enforced piety is just perfectly captured by that example from Gandhi's ashram.
It's a classic example of rule-following overriding genuine awareness. In Gandhi's ashram, consuming tea or coffee was considered a bad habit.
Right.
So people who drank tea were forced to become deceivers and hypocrites, going behind trees and hiding their tea consumption just to avoid the immense guilt and condemnation imposed by these cultivated rules. Instead of generating spiritual growth, the rules just generated deceit and fear of judgment.
So the sources confirm that generally, saints who follow this cultivation path are not very intelligent people.
It sounds harsh, but the logic is that only a person who hasn't really examined the process would follow an unending path of self-cultivation. The intelligent person sees the futility of endlessly pruning the leaves when the roots of identification are the actual problem.
And to solve the root issue requires a radical acceptance of the now, a non-effort. This is the Zen discipline of take no notice.
An approach that is the absolute inverse of cultivation. And let's look at the story of the woman disciple Hui Chui, who received the single ultimate instruction from her master.
Her training wasn't philosophical at all, it was experiential, forced right into her life. Her instruction was so simple, take no notice, and she followed it strictly without backsliding.
And the master made sure her tests were existential.
They were. The first major test addresses the anchor of possessiveness. Her house caught on fire. Everything she owned was being consumed by flames. What did she do?
She looked at the flames and repeated the instruction, take no notice. She just relaxed entirely, understanding in that immediate moment that in this world of flux, nothing is secure, nothing is permanent. She refused to attach her inner peace to the security of an outer structure.
That's already an incredibly difficult test for most people to even imagine passing. But the second test was far more emotionally severe. It confronted the anchor of attachment in relationships.
Yeah. Her only son fell into the water and was drowning. When a bystander frantically called for her, she still said, take no notice.
Wow.
The sources state that these two moments, possessiveness of things and heavy, clinging relationships with people, are the two main anchors that keep us clouded, unaware, and attached to the past. She passed both tests by refusing to let her consciousness be dragged away by external events, no matter how catastrophic they were.
And the culmination is the most startling part. Her enlightenment wasn't the result of years of quiet meditation or an accumulation of virtuous acts. It happened instantly when she heard the sound of fritters sizzling in boiling oil.
Just think about that profound contrast. She endured the fire and the death of her son with complete equanimity, but a simple, ordinary sound, the noise of fritters, became the final trigger, the last alarm that shattered the wall entirely. She was instantly enlightened, clapping her hands and just laughing hysterically.
Yeah, why the laughter?
Because the realization is so absurd. The shock of having searched for truth outside for so many lives, endured so many trials, and then to find it in the immediate, ordinary sound of food sizzling, it's inherently ridiculous. The whole point of her training was not self-cultivation. She wasn't trying to become anything. The training simply brought her back to the ultimate, non-reactive now.
And it confirms the Zen logic. The master's function is merely to confirm the awakening, to verify that she had spontaneously found the holy fruit. The lesson is like a punch to the gut. If you want to see right at once. When you begin to think, you miss the point.
Thinking, calculating, planning,
Okay.
These are just sophisticated ways of missing the immediate truth that's always there.
So we circle back now to this crisis of awareness, because the need for the immediate path, it really arises when people realize the external world has fundamentally failed them. We see this acutely in the West, where despite rising affluence, there are tragically high suicide rates.
And why does that happen? Why does success lead to suicide? Because people achieve all the external desires, the money, the status, the perfect marriage, only to realize that fulfilling those outer goals leaves a hollow inner self. The life energy is wasted on the external, and the internal house is completely empty.
So suicide is the consequence of this exclusive focus on the outer. And true transformation, what the sources call sannyas, which isn't just becoming a religious beggar but a conscious turning inward, is the result of the outer world failing. The moment you realize that the world can never satisfy you, you turn inwards.
And this internal revolution is crucial for any real relationship. And it's why love is simultaneously so terrifying and so liberating. Love is defined in these sources as the greatest suicide in the world.
The suicide of the ego.
Exactly. People fear love precisely because genuine love requires you to die first, to die to your possessiveness, your control, your identity as a separate clinging unit. Only then are you resurrected into a new reality, where two people can merge without losing themselves.
And this deeper understanding of self must necessarily transform morality itself. Historically, morality became overwhelmingly concerned with sex, losing focus on far more important dimensions.
Like truth, sincerity, awareness, love, compassion.
All the real stuff. Morality became utterly one-dimensional and rigid. This fixation on sexuality as the primary moral metric has led to unnecessary jealousy, crippling possessiveness, fighting, and pervasive condemnation across so many cultures. It created this unhealthy guilt around a basic biological phenomenon.
And the sources suggest that the future will have a totally different vision of sexuality.
How so?
It will be seen simply as a natural biological phenomenon, made into more fun, more joy, more friendship, more a play than a serious affair. It shouldn't be given such severe, condemning importance. When sexuality is viewed naturally, morality is free to focus on what truly matters: consciousness, integrity, and self-mastery.
This shift fundamentally changes the nature of commitment and relationships. When the authors address the concept of marriage, they introduce a Murphy's maxim: a fool and his cool are soon parted.
Right. Marriage is often introduced as a legal trap or a social arrangement, an economic security blanket. Love is not. You should never hope that marriage can bring love. It can't. It can only enforce proximity.
So the ideal is that love must become a marriage, not the other way around. And that takes constant, conscious effort. It requires compassion, accepting the other person's limitations, seeing their imperfections, and still loving them unconditionally. This is hard work, far harder than just signing a piece of paper.
And this mature love requires a particular psychological climate. It must achieve cool warmth.
Cool warmth.
It's a paradoxical balance. It's neither hot passion, which burns you and is always temporary, nor is it cold hatred or indifference. Cool warmth is the right climate for the lotus of love to blossom. It's stable, gentle, yet vital. It's a state of deep, conscious friendship that's built on acceptance.
In this kind of profound settlement, it only happens authentically in an environment of total freedom. The sources describe a communal environment where people are given the freedom to relate openly to many others.
But they inevitably reach a vital realization.
What's that?
They eventually become aware that, on a fundamental level, all men are alike and all women are alike. The differences are only peripheral, superficial traits, habits, or temporary excitements. The core consciousness is the same.
And this deep psychological realization that there are no fundamental, unique, magical differences out there that allows for an authentic, non-enforced settling with one person.
You settle not because you're trapped by law or because you fear punishment or separation, but because the truth is known. You have freely chosen this person, knowing that freedom exists outside the relationship. This intimacy, chosen from a place of freedom, is the only way to genuinely create that cool warmth.
So this deep dive has really pulled the rug out from under the conventional self-improvement narrative. The essential message is this immediate path. Enlightenment is instantaneous, marked by that spontaneous cry, ah, this.
And knowledge, especially the secondhand kind, is a massive wall. It's a prison built of words.
The mind is a sophisticated machine meant to be mastered and rested, not served. And transformation requires the metaphoric death of the past self, the ego, the beliefs, the societal structures that define you.
And to prompt this death, the master or the teaching, it cannot be diplomatic. Diplomacy is the art of lying politely, and it will save you from the truth. Truth, by its very nature, is bound to bring trouble because most people are rooted in comfortable, protective lies. When truth enters their life, their established structure just reacts with antagonism, with pain, with rebellion.
You have to be hit with a hammer to shatter the deep sleep of centuries. The master won't give you comfort. He will force you into insecurity, into rebellion, and into a state of not knowing, precisely because he wants you to be free. Everything else is just bondage.
So we leave you with this final provocative thought, which is rooted in the certainty that truth is the only thing that liberates. Everything else is just a self-created chain. How much trouble are you truly willing to accept in your life right now, today, to be free of your self-created prisons?
Are you ready to see right at once? To hear the sound of the fritters sizzling? Or will you continue to think it over and plan the long path, and thus miss the point entirely? The challenge of immediate liberation is whether you can give up the known, comfortable lie for the radical insecurity of the truth.